Hello and welcome to this training session on using GitHub as a key part of building your CI/CD pipeline with AWS. Before we get started, let's make sure you're ready to follow along. You'll need a few things set up in advance. Ensure you have an account on GitHub. Familiarize yourself with the basics of GitHub and its functionality. Make sure you have Git installed on your local machine. Check out my video on getting started to see how to do this. This is essential for cloning repositories and managing your versions. You will also need Visual Studio Code and make sure that this is installed in your local machine as your IDE for editing and managing your code. Additionally, we'll make sure you have access to the URL of my repository, which you can find below in the description. In this video, I will guide you through the process of forking my repository to make it your own, making changes to it, and pushing these changes back to your own repository. And finally, showing you how to deploy this onto AWS using CI/CD pipeline. Let's start by showing you how to fork NextPerson-Prisma repository from my account to yours. In this app, I have a demonstrator app that uses Next.js 14 using an app router, and I'm using APIs to use Prisma ORM to connect to the database, and I'm using React and Material UI on the front end to demonstrate both client-side rendering and server-side rendering. So before we get started, I just wanted to show you that I've created a completely fresh GitHub repository. And from here, you can see that I do not have any repositories at the moment. Bit of an overview, completely brand new. Some of you are probably having a very similar account like this. Anyway, first thing is go to the repository that I've shared. That's my personal repository, github.com/gocallum/nextperson-prisma. Let's click on that. When you click on NextPerson-Prisma, you'll see all my code, and also you'll get a chance to go through the documentation as well. That's under README. Anyway, when you download all the code or when you clone the code, you'll be able to get a copy of the README instructions, which is fairly clear and straightforward. You can see that I've been working on this over time on this code. Anyway, so let's go ahead and let's click on fork. You can see 6 people have already forked this. So let's go ahead and click this button called fork. All right, so when I click on create a new fork, you can see that I'm the owner. The owner in this case is Callum Bootcamp. This is a different account to my personal email account, which is GoCallum, and it's copied the same repository name. There's probably no need to change the repository name. You can keep it the same, call NextPerson-Prisma. What I might do though is, just so that I don't get confused about the different repositories, I might just go ahead and provide a description. For example, this is a forked version of the original repo program Callum. Okay. Yeah, you probably just want to only copy the main branch. All right, let's now go and create a fork. Okay, now that I've gone and done that, you'll see if I click on, you can see in my repository, in this new repository, it's got a new code repo called NextPerson-Prisma. There it is. You've got a complete copy of the latest version of my code. So now that I have forked, what I want to do next is go to my terminal and download the code. So what I'll do is I'll type terminal. I prefer using terminal because it uses all the Unix commands. I'll probably just, for this demonstration, put things in my downloads folder and cd tutorials. Okay, I have no files in here. So the next thing is you're going to need a command, git command. So the command is git and then clone. And then the URL is pretty much the same as the URL that you have. All you got to do is take your current URL as it is at the moment. In this case, /Callum Bootcamp /NextPerson Prisma, and you just put the word Git right after that. You might have to do a Git init if you haven't done this before. So anyway, now that my latest code is downloaded, I'll click on NextPerson Prisma. What I'll do next is I'll go ahead and open up my code in the using Visual Studio Code. All right. Now I'm expecting Visual Studio Code to start up. Okay, so Visual Studio Code has already started. Looks like my Visual Studio Code has just been updated as well. Anyway, the first thing I want you to do is go into the env file and make sure all the credentials are correct. You'll find the details of the env file in the LMS. That's where I provide all the credentials to the database in particular. And yeah, assuming that's all good, let's go and run this. So let's click on terminal. But first thing, it's always good to do if you follow the README instructions. Anyway, the README instructions are here. This kind of pretty much tells you what to do. But before I do anything, the first thing I want to do is just do a npm install just to make sure that I've got all of the dependencies implemented correctly. Okay, while that's going through all the dependencies, please feel free to go through the .env file one more time and browse through the code and click on and just be clear about all the various different environment variables that you need to go through. Again, if you're creating a new database, just make sure you always do the npx prisma migrate dev. That's the important piece. So what it'll do, npx prisma migrate dev, it'll make a connection to the database and it will create the database tables. I wouldn't do that in my case because I've already provided my database credentials and I've set up the database tables already. So I'm going to skip that, but I would highly recommend you do that if you're creating a fresh database environment. Okay, so that's that kind of worked through well. Now let's go and run this. npm run dev. Okay, this is the moment of the truth. All right, it successfully loaded my environment variables. So far, there's been no errors. So let's go and run this in the browser. Click Control. So going back to this, okay, I've got some deprecation warnings in the back end, and it's compiling some of my code. Let's see what's happening. You can see I'm using Alt-Tab to switch between what's happening on the browser as well as what's happening on the server side as well. Okay, there you go. You can see the application has loaded correctly. It's also pulled the data that I have pre-populated in my database. What we can do is try and put some dummy data as well and click on update. There you go, record saved successfully. Great. I hope you've been able to replicate this as well. And straight after you do that, let's work together and let's investigate the various different components of the app. So now that we know the code works, let me just go and make some simple modifications just to use this as a demo. I'm just going to add some additional details into our README file. Okay, let's see what else can we change. That's all good. Change log. Okay, I'm just putting some additional information about that. So, okay, add. Okay, working copy of README will be replaced. Okay, great. Okay, add. Okay, two insertions. All right, I've just pushed the latest code into GitHub. So now that we have deployed our latest code into our repository, let's go and deploy that into AWS Amplify. So the first thing is click on Amplify. Now we're in AWS Amplify. The first thing we need to do is just click on Get Started. When you click on Get Started, you'll see Amplify Hosting. Click on Get Started. We'll choose GitHub as our code repository. Click Continue. I have already set up GitHub authorization. If you haven't done so, go and do that right now by selecting the repository service provider's GitHub. Since I've gone ahead and done that already, go ahead and click on the repo. I'm just going to click the NextPerson Prisma. Click on the main branch. In your case, you'll click your repository. And if you've selected the same repository name, then pick that. And then assuming you've also got a main branch, click on next. In the build settings, the build and test scripts are standard. There's no change required, but it's important that you do click on advanced settings. In the advanced settings, click on build image, where you've got build image. Make sure you put in node 20.9.0. Basically, the reason we need to do that is we need to specify one of the pre-built containers within provided by AWS, and just keep in mind that Node.js, keep in mind that Next 14 has a specific requirement that it has to be at least greater than 20.6 or something to that effect. So we'll just select that for now. In this particular case, I'm using the .env, so I'm going to skip that, but it's always good practice to remove all your credentials away from environment variables and use these environment variables through this at the moment. And the rest, I'm just going to create and use a new service role. Let's go ahead and deploy this. Okay, Next.js, that's great. It's using custom image, node 20.9.0. This could take a good couple of minutes. Okay, it's gone ahead and created the app, and now it's provisioning the app. It's a three-step process. Step one is to provision, second step is to build, and the third step is to deploy. Okay, it has gone ahead and provisioned. That's been successful. Now it's going to do a build. Okay, the build has been successful. Now let's look at the deploy. Yeah, keep in mind we're using a complete serverless environment of AWS using AWS Amplify. Okay, now the provision, build, and deploy has been successful. So let's click on the main URL and let's see if this works. Okay, so the app works, and as you can see, this app has automatically been given a URL, and the people app is running, and it's pulling out the two records from the database. Fantastic. I hope you're able to achieve the same.